Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Carey. I work with banks and financial services companies to help them do more with less by leveraging the dynamic risk intelligence principles, by maximizing the number of money laundering, fraud, and terrorism risk funding schemes that can be uncovered and stopped while reducing operating costs. Joining me today are three esteemed speakers with rich history in financial services and AML operations. Collectively, our panel has over 80 years of experience working within financial services space. Let me introduce today's panel. Our first panelist is Wei Young. Wei is a former global compliance executive at a top 5 global bank. Thanks for joining us today, Wei.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Sean.
I'm also joined by my colleague, Peter Ritz. Peter leads FatBrain and has a deep focus around the customer and the customer experience. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Sean. Thank you very, very much for having us, and look forward to a productive discussion.
And finally, we're also joined by FatBrain's CSO, Dr. Das. Rajarshi is formerly the AI AML lead at IBM Watson Labs, the Los Alamos National Lab, and the Santa Fe Institute. Hey, Rajarshi, how you doing today?
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having us. And these are unique times. Look forward to interesting discussions here today.
This panel of experts has co-created the AML Playbook by working together with top 5 global banks, and we're going to present that to you today. The playbook has been proven to work to deliver effective and efficiency results in over within 91 days for our customers. Solid proof that this is the right playbook for you to address both your efficiency and effectiveness challenges that you're facing today in light of the global pandemic that we're all facing in our businesses. The panel is going to provide actionable steps to move forward during this time of accelerating risk as we all attempt to flatten the curve that we're facing with increased caseloads and reduced staffing levels. We'll conclude with the idea of how to move forward, what we call the Go to Green plan, and allow you to develop your own playbook to drive forward in these new times. Just a few housekeeping measures. We're recording this today's session for view later. So if you do have any questions, post them in the chat window, and we will answer those at the conclusion of our webinar. And we thank you for your participation and your attentiveness today. Let's move forward. Peter, what are some of the things that compliance executives are telling you right now in light of COVID-19 and the global pandemic that we're all facing?
Well, in the simplest terms, Sean, they are just swamped. While the surge that we've all seen on the news and all heard about has been affecting hospitals and our kind of frontline workers, we've actually had a frontline seat there as well, and have done our part to help. Our friends in the AML community who are trying to fight the criminals, are having to do with much less because there's less available talent, less staff available, and the surge, so to speak, in cases has grown tremendously. So it's a really difficult time.
Thanks, Peter. Wei, how about your colleagues? What are you hearing out on the street?
I'm hearing this is worse than 9/11 or even the financial crisis, because at that time, everybody was sort of at their station after a short disruption, but and now the capacity is down almost 20 to 50%, and the risk has spiked up by multiple times.
So Wei, as we're seeing this, and you've just confirmed this, two significant risks in the AML compliance playbooks that are occurring right now, and what we're calling stressors in the current incumbent playbook. Maybe you could take us through some of the real specific stressors that the operations folks are seeing today, along the lines of increased caseloads and reductions in staff challenges, and what's that going to pose to the operational metrics?
Yeah, basically, think of it as a tsunami. There's a tsunami coming because of the false positive load is so much, case load is so much. Every model trigger is triggered. There's a behavior change. What good looks like is different. The model is overwhelmed. At the same time, the below the line risk, which is the part that wasn't subject to automation, even on a normal day, on a good day. But now all the people that were counted on to do that work manually are simply not on site or coordinate enough to do the work. So then you have a massive below the line risk. So you have the tsunami that washes away the actual human intelligence, and then you're inundated with a lot of false positives. So it goes hand in hand. So overall, it results in a drastic reduction of effectiveness of the operation. That's pretty much it.
And Peter, further to Wei's points, and I know that some of the folks that we're working with today, real hands-on feedback around staff challenges and the increase in caseload and volume alerts. How are they using this time to start to position themselves to both deal with this as well as position themselves for the new future?
Well, it's very difficult because, first of all, it's really difficult in a situation where so much of the regime relies on kind of human interaction, and rightfully so, with so many rules in play. The reliance on rules requires the humans to review, and one of the biggest stressors is the fact that it's difficult to kind of reprogram the systems in this kind of a short-staffed circumstance. So the folks having to do with kind of a difficult choice. The caseload has grown tremendously, and there is a kind of a surge of cases that are there unattended. And the real question is, well, how do we melt that down? How do we effectively deal with that with less staff? So the stressors are real, and the efficiency and effectiveness are suffering as a result.
It's pretty clear from what you're saying and what we've experienced that the incumbent playbook is on life support, and it doesn't have a very bright future ahead of us. So let's get into a little bit more on what we look at as the incumbent way of doing things, and then how the FatBrain approach to AI, AML, and AML automation is poised to help with that. And Wei, in many ways, what you've described is what you experienced when you were dealing with this back at Bank of America. Obviously, it was under different times than we are today, but what you saw was that your playbook kind of ran out of gas, and that you saw the need for a way to bring in automation into your processes, and how you can get yourself out of the lack of effectiveness and efficiency that your incumbent playbook was operating under. Maybe you could take us through some of that. I know you've designed this idea around multiple types of processes. Maybe you can take us through some of that that's depicted in this chart, and then we can talk a little bit further about how we move through that together.
Sure. I led a quant team of 40 people, some of the best quants I ever had in my career on Wall Street. And we were in charge of AML model innovation It's a multi-year plan. We really worked very hard to come up with a solution to a model sprawl problem. And this is associated with sort of a level 2 stage of development. And although level 2 sounds elementary, but I think that's still state of the art on for a lot of financial institutions. Level 2 represent a stage where an institution has a number of typologies or models to detect specific behavior signatures, but really doesn't have a way of integrating them to make them work effectively together. And also, as a result of that, we had a problem with adding scenarios or typologies in any practical and short period of time, and it just can't keep up with the demand. And with the current sprawl of models and scenarios, there's a real drag on documentation and due diligence overhead versus refining the methodologies. This results in an overwhelming dose of false positive, a big reliance on human manual case promotion, and tie us down, and so we can't do new risk detection. On this curve, you can see that level 1 is even simpler than that. Basically, it doesn't really have typologies per se. It's really adding up the alerts, operating at the alert level. When I was at BFA, we're envisioning a 4-year plan that takes a fragmented alert dependent scenario system to a more integrated model, right, that removes more of the human dependency. But we realize it takes many years, a lot of cost, and we have to hire talent, which has to be trained. If we use some of the existing technologies, it will not be immediately tailor-made or adaptable to our legacy systems. And that's when the business was normal, or BAU. We could see that it takes many years to move up the return of your investment, so to speak. And it takes multi-year, multi-million, 10 years, up to 100 million additional spend to get to a point where you can actually look at your alert in a more discerning fashion, right? So that's the incremental way of doing things, which I failed to move the needle. Once I realized that the eventual destiny of this path is less return per dollar spent. And that's where I reached out to find alternative solutions with FatBrain. And the story began from there.
So Wei, in the interim, before you got there, part of your measurement of the team and the results were your type 1 and type 2 rubric to identify areas that needed to be improved and needed to be enhanced and automated. And on this chart, we're showing a little bit about those areas that you use for internal measurements and how you would self-grade your performance in those areas. And then as we move into what we call type 3 and type 4, we'll start to show what the impact of the type 3 and the type 4 operating modes are. Was there anything else further, Wei, that you want to talk about on this chart?
Yeah, we use a business go-to-green plan as a governance routine to understand a particular process, where we are and where we want to go. And we distinguish between different categories of performance metrics, from caseload, score distribution, to explainability, to new risk detection. I have to say that this chart, as it was drawn, most of it is red, but I would say that given the crisis, even if you are level 2, the caseload and the party score distribution are going to be turning red already, and it will stay in red for a while. This thing is not going away anytime soon. So things are looking a little redder than before for level 1, level 2 stages of AML governance.
just to second that, we're hearing a lot of the same sentiment from the market overall, Sean. There's a lot of red, and everybody can relate to being kind of in the red now. So it's a lot of strain on the organizations all around in that both level 1 and level 2 space.
So as this chart is titled, "Stay and Pray" does not seem to be the plan forward, and it's not going to sustain businesses under normal conditions, yet let alone the conditions that are being faced now with the global pandemic. What I'd like to do now is shift to what we call the Go to Green plan, as Wei alluded to, and how we see a strategy to leapfrog around this and move you up the curve in a manner that gets you to deal with the matters that we just talked about. And it is safe to say, and we believe that this AML Playbook 1.0 has met its match, and it's time to move into what we're calling the modern way to look at these things.
And we heard from folks, Sean, that it's on life support, and it looks like the virus is going to kill it. I mean, that's kind of it sounds glib, but that's kind of the reality of folks on the ground.
So I know this is we've been focusing a lot around AML in our space, but I also wanted to bring Rajarshi into the discussion. Not only are we seeing this in financial services, but I thought it'd be interesting just to have a little side discussion about what else are we seeing out in the industry and other areas of technology. I know there's been a lot of publicity in the news, some of the changes that some of the bigger companies like Google and Facebook are making at this time. Rajarshi, is there anything you wanted to bring into the discussion from that point of view?
Sean, I'll echo what Wei and Peter mentioned about the need for automation, not just in AML but across the tech space. And financial services firms are not the only ones looking at this. Recently, Facebook was forced into, the headline here, into this kind of need for automation because of lack of human moderators. And given the publicity that Facebook had received over the last 2 years, this is a drastic move by them to remove the human moderators, and which underscores that there is transformation to automation happening right now in the broader tech area. And there is immense need for automation that is both effective and efficient. And that is what our clients are looking and need ways to quantify the effectiveness-led efficiency gains. The COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated that humans need tools that can help evidence-based predictions, help make informed, proactive decisions, and not to be simply a tool to filter information like in alert-based systems. And firms are trying, and what we're hearing is that firms are going to try to make sure that this automation that they need is immune to future shocks of the fast-moving events. I mean, it is one thing to go past the first surge, but there is much likelihood of this pattern of surge repeating. So the need is for how can you be immune to such future shocks using AI technology?
Yeah, Rajarshi, that makes a lot of sense, and I think for me, it's also comforting to know that other industries are adopting these types of automation processes, and it makes sense all around, either fighting financial crime or just being, more efficient and effective as labor forces are reduced and impacted by the global pandemic. So I think that's an interesting way to transition to what our vision of the new AI AML playbook looks like, and how this can become impactful in these operations. Peter, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you for a second?
No, it's all good. I mean, I was just going to say that the regulators are not letting up either. SEC announced that, for example, its broker-dealer compliance requirements are not going away, so they're still due in the midsummer coming up in terms of all the new typology compliancy. So nobody's letting up. There's less resources available to do the job, and more risk all around, with regulators kind of expecting everybody to do their job. So that's kind of that's where we stand today, and that's the calling to make the playbook happen, the new playbook, that is.
So with the benefit of Wei's experience in deploying FatBrain AI AML at Bank of America, and now the urgency that banks are facing with the COVID-19 crisis, let's jump right into the new playbook and how we describe that and how we see that adding value. Wei, do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, sure. So the new way of doing things is really to take a level 1 or level 2 player in this arena and immediately decipher and discern the alert generation, differentiate at a party level score a continuous risk profile, right? So if you look at this chart, we can really leapfrog from a stage 1 or stage 2. Now, remember, everything is red now, right? The go to green plan looks forever dimmer. And if you look at the trajectory of model evolution, instead of taking several years to get to the next level, it would probably take multiples of that. And what's happening now is the weaknesses and the fragmentation has made the incumbent system very fragile. If it's not broken, it's going to break very soon. So the playbook can take a level 2 where you have fragmented scenarios, alert-based models, to integrated one where we can triage literally all the alerts and scenarios in a holistic way that increases effectiveness, reduces reliance on such as human promotion and manual promotion, which you just can't afford to do. In a very short period of time, we're not talking about months. You don't have months. We don't need months. It's just weeks. It takes just a small amount of staff support, the key quant and operational personnel to work with us to get this done. Again, that plays in hands of reduced staff availability. Yeah, that's a high-level summary of how we can accelerate this risk detection process.
Thank you, Wei. That's very, very helpful. Rajarshi, there's a couple of things that I think are really key to achieving the level 3 and level 4. And, we call the concept behavior risk scoring in our alert intelligence processes. I would like to see if you can take us through at a high level what those two concepts mean. I think they're the cornerstones of our platform, and how that's different from the incumbent platforms that we see out there, and how this accelerates and or leapfrogs a customer through this journey.
Sure, Sean. As we described, the current level 2 systems are siloed, and they are effectively optimized and tuned in a siloed fashion. And what we are proposing in level 3 and to level 4 is that we have automated tuning of these scenarios, in a way, in a mathematically principled and cohesive way that we can consolidate these scenarios, these multiple scenarios, as opposed to optimizing them individually. And then not only being able to do that, but to also put them together so that we can come up with, uh, uh, risk scoring, which is what we see in level 4, to be able to look at alert intelligence, look at new emerging risk, and to be able to uh, have controls based on the clients or the bank's risk appetite, to be able to determine as to how to do the consolidation, scenario consolidation, how do you optimize the scenarios, but having a singular scoring mechanism that spans multiple scenarios from a holistic perspective. But all of this is backed up by having an auditable system, and also a system where the decisions that are made in terms of risk appetite controls are explainable. If a particular party is, whom now we have the ability to score given the party's behavior, we can explain as to why this particular party was SARD or not SARD in a quantitative fashion. And all of these decisions that are made, that are also auditable, so that come at compliance time, you can go back and easily and show that what's the chain of reasoning, what's the chain of provenance in making those decisions. So we see that this is a fundamental part that has to be integrated in going forward. And based on our earlier conversation about automation, all of this can be automated. And this is what we have demonstrated.
Thanks, Rajarshi. I wanted to switch back then to kind of the operational impact. As we talk about the Go to Green plan, you'll see now that I've increased the chart to include the type 3 and the type 4 modes of operation into our chart. And we can now examine the operational KPIs that a financial services institution would be working with, and how the type 3 and the type 4 modes of operation would be impacted. Wei, could you take us through this? And number one, go through the KPIs, and then number two, how did you achieve success in your Go to Green plan by implementing the FatBrain AI AML platform?
Sure. So with the greens and the yellows, obviously that's where we want to end up. With BFA, it was a very, very interesting example where the project started in a very discrete way. It was a model consolidation effort, and tried to take it beyond that. Is a byproduct of the power of solution brought by FatBrain technology, that were able to leapfrog from 2 to 4 directly, because they were it was able to capture behavior analytics directly from raw transaction signals. It went beyond just alert triage, but it's certainly what's in common between 3 and 4 is this concept of model consolidation, where one doesn't operate with fragmented model systems. What's also interesting is when you go beyond level 3, new typologies can be data mined or discovered much more rapidly, and the incorporation of alerts that has been unknown or unseen before is much more rapid. And it's really a hallmark of the achievement of both BFA embracing this technology and also FatBrain's ability to work with a large institution to get there. And then there's an interesting shift of people's quality of life. You could say that they used to spend on chasing caseloads, false positives, and not understanding the differentiation between what's good and bad, and still missing all the below the line risk, and do sampling tests just to make sure that they satisfy certain criteria, and still worry that when regulators come in, they may take a different sample that one hasn't tested, to one of discovering your risk, working with the new technology to inform it in a continuous learning cycle, behavior patterns, and documenting them, creating typologies, very much in a plug and play mode. There's also an introduction of the concept of risk appetite, which is kind of alien to the AML framework, but it's well understood in enterprise risk management, such as CCAR, credit loss tolerance reserves. This concept of risk appetite allows senior risk execs to control the balance between false positive, false negative, and load in a way that is unseen before, versus just having one knob called a threshold. And the defensive filing of SAR against the threshold was no longer an issue or phenomenon for the clients that FatBrain served. Yeah, so this is some of the benefits and that I've seen firsthand. That's really pretty amazing. Back to you, Sean.
I wanted to come back to our chart, this chart again, and I think this is a really interesting depiction as we added some arrows and some of the dots on here to really identify the acceleration capability and possibility of this approach. And I think some of this content was developed before COVID-19, and it even is underlined the value and the benefits even more. Peter, you've often used the idea of leapfrogging the curve, and I wonder if maybe you could start to summarize for us as we get towards the end of our time together. Just summarize, if you could, some of the takeaways here and the idea of how you can leapfrog from scenario 1, 2 to a 3, 4, and what the impact of that could be.
Well, what has been clear from all the folks, and here we were fortunate to have Wade tell us how things happened at a very large scale at a global bank like top 5 in the world and so on. I wanted to first highlight that this idea of going from stage 2 to stage 3, even going from stage 1 to stage 3, is something that's very doable even by more modest institutions. Even if somebody is getting 500, 1,000 alerts, they don't have to be billions of transactions and so on. They can be helped by the framework because alerts can be automatically triaged and curated, and then there is a path to go forward. So one big takeaway from our perspective is just staying and praying all this is going to go away is not the course, is not the right way to do it. So what we have seen, importantly, is that because the caseload has actually surged, the first very practical thing to do is to melt down just the increase, the delta in the caseload that's there because of COVID. And we can very quickly and very cost effectively help organizations to do that. We will not call that going back to normal, going back to kind of Christmas time. It's just not practical to think in those terms, because what we've heard from all of our engagement, both on the front line, from the folks in the medical community, but also from folks in the regulators that we're working with across the globe, is this thing is not going to go away, and preparedness for it will not and should not wane over many months to come. So being prepared right away to both melt down kind of the surge, if you will, in cases, but then also prepare for the long haul is a critical way to go forward, both to be more compliant and probably just as importantly to prepare for the long term. The approach is proven and repeatable at every scale, and we think that's a very big deal. Everything that you've heard Rajarshi say, everything that you've heard Wei say, and so on, we've now done many times, and we know what the difficulties are. If we have to work with the customer, we don't make expedient judgments. We like customers where they are today and how their systems are in terms of how we find them, and we just try to accelerate them for the long haul, both to deal with an immediate crisis, but then also for the long-term sustainable operational improvement. So at a very, very high level, that's the idea. This is not just, oh, look, we can get kind of an expedient solution to a crisis, but let's do a long-term smart solution that also melts down the impact of the crisis. So that's kind of what we've heard from clients, big and small, local and global, and we're very excited to deliver that on that promise as we've done before.
Peter and team, we often, customers come to us looking for help. They want to know what can they do? How can they move forward? And we see two clear paths, as we address those questions. One of them looks like this. You can keep going down the same path that you're on, as we talk about it in the previous discussion in type 1 and type 2 operating modes. And you can continue to do that. You can attend our next webinar and we can talk more about how we approach these problems. And you can follow that path. That's a path to follow.
And we'd be happy to have you, and we're happy to spend time with you to explain and educate you as much as we can. That's part of our commitment to this space.
Absolutely. And we also have another path that you could go down, and that path is you can start right now. And how can you put together a plan to leapfrog the curve, and what we call as the Go to Green plan. And we want to offer this to you immediately. This is an immediately actionable plan. And as Peter said, we're ready to work with you in either way. But in the alternative route would be, let's schedule a workshop with the FatBrain experts that you just heard from, and we'll help you personalize your AI AML playbook. We can develop for you a plug-and-play deployment plan to implement the FatBrain software on your premise, on your hardware, running inside of your firewall. It's a very straightforward plug-and-play deployment plan that's been proven with top global banks. And you can begin using this platform to flatten the caseload surge that you're about to face and maybe already dealing with. Contact us. Let us know if we can work with this plan and help you address these challenges that you're facing today. I'd like to thank all of you for listening and following along. I'd like to thank the panel of experts, Peter, Wei, and Rajarshi, for giving their time to this, preparing for this presentation and delivering it today. If you want to learn more about the FatBrain AI AML software platform, the information is listed on the screen. Contact us to set up your workshop, and let's get started on solving these challenges for you. Again, thanks very much. May you be well and remain safe. That's the end of the recording.